news. There's at least 4 people are believed to be held hostage.
Colleyville Synagogue. President Biden also aware, briefed on the situation.
It's also got the attention of the Prime Minister of Israel.
It was like watching a thriller or a horror film, but you're living it.
Our attacker said, "I want to talk to the chief rabbi of the United States."
I thought he might kill them.
This could be our last moment. Last moment.
Last moment.
Hi, and welcome to Conversations with B'nai B'rith. I'm CEO Dan Mariaschin. Many of you will remember the synagogue hostage crisis in Colleyville, Texas, in January of 2022, a shocking event that unfolded during a live-streamed Saturday Shabbat service and captured the attention of millions around the world. 4 people, a rabbi and 3 congregants, were held hostage for nearly 11 hours. Thankfully, all 4 survived this harrowing ordeal that tested the courage of a Jewish community under unimaginable pressure. My guest today is acclaimed filmmaker Dani Menkin, who, like so many others, watched the events in horror as they unfolded and felt compelled to tell the story of Colleyville the best way he knew how, through film. Menkin previously joined us in 2022 to discuss his film Alsi, which tells the story of an unlikely Israeli and ultimately Jewish basketball legend, Alsi Perry. Menkin is an Israeli-American Academy Award-winning writer and director whose films focus on Israeli and Jewish stories for audiences worldwide. In 2005, he founded Hey Jude Productions, a Los Angeles-based international film company devoted to creating powerful documentaries that explore the true stories while offering hope and resilience. His debut documentary, 39 Pounds of Love, tells the story of an Israeli-American living with a rare form of muscular dystrophy. Navigating life with courage and humor, the film was shortlisted for the Academy Awards. Another acclaimed film, Dolphin Boy, later acquired by Walt Disney Pictures, follows an Arab-Israeli teenager's journey of healing trauma through therapy with dolphins. His film, On the Map, chronicles the rise of the Israeli national basketball team and is distributed internationally by Lionsgate. After months of research, interviews with the hostages, and careful use of existing footage, Menkin's film Colleyville made its U.S. premiere at the U.S. Museum of Tolerance in Los Angeles as part of the Jewish Film Festival in June 2024. Before we delve into our conversation, just a quick reminder. If you enjoyed this program, subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch all of our episodes and follow us on Facebook to stay up to date with our latest content. Dani, I'm so pleased you're joining us today. Thank you for being here and welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Well, Dani, many of your documentaries focus on deeply human stories told under extraordinary circumstances. What themes tend to guide your work, and how do you choose your path as a filmmaker?
You know, my company name is Hey Jude Productions, and that comes from the line of the Beatles, take a sad song and make it better. So I always look for these bittersweet moments, the moments that were hard, and there are some challenges and important stories to tell of overcoming difficult moments, but always I'm looking for the hope. You know, I'm looking for the resilience, and like last time we spoke about this story of Alsi Perry, and it was a story of redemption. So I think in that way, what happened with Colleyville is the same thing. When it happened, it was terrible, but then I realized that this unbelievable Rabbi Charlie, and the 3 other guys that were held hostage by this terrible gunman were heroes. And what they got out of it was something that I wanted to tell in a story, in a movie, in a film. So that's how I started approaching them. It was a national event, international event even, and something that came from a little town of Colleyville, Texas, all the way to the White House and to the Prime Minister of Israel, then Naftali Bennett, and made those four anonymous famous, and then unwillingly they became famous. And for me, they were really inspiring.
Well, it's an amazing story, and it's a gripping film, and we'll get back to it in just a moment. But I want to ask you a little bit more about how you see your work. All of these films are your children, so it's hard to say which is better. Whom do you like better? Is you never ask parents or like to ask parents that question. But in terms of your work, are there one or two of your films, and now your library is growing, that best reflect the kind of impact that you hope to have both within the Jewish community and with broader audiences? You've talked about the idea of redemption and hope. Which of the films would you say best brings that to the screen?
I can quote Shimon Peres when he was asked about all the things he achieved in life and for Israel. What was his most important one? He was saying the one I'll do tomorrow. So for me, it's kind of the same. It's like the next movie, which actually right now I'm writing some of my documentaries into fiction, into narrative, and it's based on those documentaries. So I relive them, and I'm pretty excited about Duffy Boy and about 39 Pounds of Love and On the Map, which is really a screenplay that I'm very proud of, and it's really relevant. Even Colleyville actually started as a narrative. I thought, wow, that's going to be a great story. 11 hours, 4 characters and gunmen, everything you want to have in a movie, happy ending, everything. Sorry if I spoil you that, but you can just Google it and understand. But everything that happened and funny moments in those horrifying 11 hours. So for me, really, I don't have a favorite. I have a theme. And when I find out that the next story touches what I want to tell, it's inspiring, it has an important message, but more important for me than the message is the story. Because you can just write a line and then there is the message. So by all means, I'm not a rabbi, and I'm not a professor in the university. I'm a storyteller. So finding out that there is an underdog that is able to overcome a challenge or challenges sometimes, and comes out of it stronger and inspire me, that's usually where I start my journey telling the story. And very quickly I said, oh my gosh, what am I doing? It's crazy to make a movie. It's raising money, and it's like we say in Hebrew, balagan. It's like a lot of work. But at the end of the day, when you see it touches people and they laugh and they cry and they come out of it maybe better than they were before, even if it's for just 90 minutes, I've done my best. And
Well, one more question before we get to Colleyville. I know that you've also maintained a special connection to sports. You started out as a sports writer. As I mentioned earlier, you joined us to talk about Elsie Perry a few years ago, now 4 years ago. How has that interest in sports shaped your career and influenced the kind of stories you tell and the themes that you choose? In other words, in sports, you've got all of it. You've got drama, you've got redemption, you've got happy endings, you've got frustrating endings, you've got everything in sports is in life. So how do you think that work that you've done and that connection that you have to sports has affected your work?
For many reasons, I see sport as the best story. For me, I mean, we just spoke before off record about Danny Avdia. For me, watching him play is like the best story. What will he do? Will they win? Will they not win? And
this is the Israeli who plays in the NBA now for Portland.
He's not only the player, he's like an all-star level Israeli player in the NBA. I mean, he's just incredible and amazing. And I had even the opportunity to meet him here in LA a few weeks ago, and he's just a wonderful, wonderful kid. So he's just a great story, and Tal Brody, Olsi Perry, On the Map, and those guys are wonderful stories, and that's where I came from, because I really wanted to be one of them. I'm really jealous. So I'm taking the line, if you can beat them, instead of join them, report on them or tell their story.
Yes.
So I wanted to be a player in Maccabi. I wanted to be a soccer player, and I still play tennis, and sometimes I'm okay, sometimes, nothing to write home about. But as a storyteller, I just love it. And I will say more than that, even when I make other films that are not about sport, I still keep a scoreboard and, okay, where we are with it. And I try to have the clock ticking, just like we have in any soccer, basketball game. And I think it's the reason it's so popular. It's because it's a great story. And if you can see, we usually like the underdog, so it's something that you can bring from the sports world to the world of storytelling.
Well, turning to Colleyville now, we talked about it briefly, but walk us through what happened there on January 15th, 2022, and what first compelled you to approach this particular story as a filmmaker. We all remember it. Everybody dropped everything. We were glued to the TV. Tell us about your entry into doing this film on that story.
Yeah, I'm finding myself in a retreat in Mexico writing a screenplay. That's what I've done. And then I see a message from the foreign minister of Israel, Yair Lapid, at that time, say, we're praying for the hostages. Now, this is before October 7th. This is January 15th, 2022, and it was Saturday. And immediately you think of the Tree of Life, and you think of other events that happen. And, even though I was kind of disconnected, I opened the TV. We had CNN, Fox, everything. And they all broadcast live from that event, which goes on and on and on and on for the entire day. And usually you think it's not going to end well. And when it had a happy ending, the stories from what happened on those 11 hours that everyone like you were glued to the TV started to come out. And I tried to reach out to Rabbi Charlie, which I heard his message after that was very inspiring. He was saying, even though what we've been through, we're not going to stop loving the stranger. And I said, oh, wow, that's a great ambassador for Jewish people. I want to meet that guy. I don't know if I want to make a movie. I want to meet that guy. So I flew myself to Texas without cameras, without anything. And Rabbi Charlie even tells the story.
Rabbi Charlie is Rabbi Charles Citron Walker, the rabbi of Congregation Bethel.
Right. Yeah, that was held hostage, and he was leading that service Shabbat morning. And he said, fine, let's start talking to you. He was pretty reluctant. Then he opened up, and the other hostages were willing to give me exclusive rights for everything, for the stories, for the families, for the text messages. But I always knew that there is more to it because it was shot live. It was broadcast live on Facebook because it was during COVID and it's a reform synagogue. So I have a lot of footage that I tried to get. And there were 13 security cameras, which took me a year to get from the FBI. But once I was in the editing room and I just cut the audio of all these incredible stories, they're telling me about how they order pizza, how Shane is not even Jewish and he's about to convert, and the story about Rabbi Buchdal, that she's the most famous rabbi in America, according to the gunman, because that he Googles her name and she find out she's number one, which is a funny story. She's number one in Google because 2 weeks before she was a question in the game show Jeopardy. So the story comes together, and then finding out that everything is on camera. That
without focusing on the gunman, which you do because of you have all of this video, as you say, the 13 cameras, I mean, from every angle. And by the way, there's a good lesson in that when you're talking about having security in a building. Was there something about this attack that stood out to you or stayed with you as you followed it in real time? As you were watching this, you're writing, you put everything down, you're watching it on TV. What was going through your mind?
I mean, it was just horrifying as much as I imagined it, because the gunman pointed the gun on them the entire time. One time, he even shot to the ceiling. Rabbi Charlie thought somebody is dead, and you see him like covering his head. And there are just 4 innocent people that are held because this guy thinks Jews control the world. That's it. He thinks, in his words, that if he holds 4 people hostage and they happen to be Jewish, President Trump, like that's his word, or President Biden, together will do everything, including releasing Lady Al-Qaeda. So what happened is that Lady Al-Qaeda was held in prison just right by that synagogue in Fort Worth. And that's the reason he chose that congregation. So it was just something that, you cannot imagine. In my world, I never dealt, as you mentioned, I come from the sport world. So I never dealt with something that has the true crime material or that kind of stuff. I was drawn to the story because I felt Rabbi Charlie and Jeff and Shane and Larry were incredible characters from a storytelling point of view. And I wanted to share their point of view of what happened that day. So being able to get all the footage to see that Larry is released, but he doesn't even understand that he's released because he has trouble hearing. So he's thinking, oh, he's just letting me go to the bathroom. And actually, the gunman chooses to release Shane. And Shane says, hey, no, I will stay. Larry should go. And he's not even Jewish at that time. He could just go, but he's a mensch of a mensch. He just chooses to stay. So the older guy will be released. Those are things that are making a movie, great. And
well, I would say here, I mean, there's this terrific editing in the film, because you have all of this video that you have from the synagogue itself, from the Facebook this live stream, but you've used TV reporters. You've got the Jeopardy piece for Rabbi Buchdahl. You actually also use, I think, some kind of graphic novel art for a couple of the scenes. So your editing really, I think, broadens the effect of the film. I'm saying this as a viewer. But let me ask you now, as it connects to today, at a time when anti-Semitic attacks are rising in the United States, around the world, it's a global issue for us in our community and for everyone. What made you feel that this was a story that you needed to tell through film? Because this is, you hear the voice of the gunman. And as you just said, you hear his worldview, which is an anti-Semitic worldview, that Jews control the world and control, for example, the imprisonment of Lady Al-Qaeda. So what about that connection? Did that drive you through this process of doing this film to tell an aspect, a very important aspect, what could have been a violent aspect of anti-Semitism?
Absolutely. And there were two aspects to it because I started the movie and I thought, the aspect of anti-Semitism is one piece to it. But it was just an incredible true crime moment that I was able to have unbelievable access to the material that no one has ever seen. So I thought, wow, that's gold. And I wanted to share the anti-Semitism aspect of it. But there was another thing that happened during the editing of the film. And by the way, speaking of the editing, great credit to Joe Hidrich, that was my editor, and a sub-Zellner that did the animation for this stuff that I did not have, is that at some point, while I'm editing, October 7th happens. And then the whole story got a different meaning, at least for me, because those words that the gunman said, this extremist Islam said, "I love death more than you love life," were the same words that were echoing on the horrifying moments that we faced as a country, Israel faced, because of those extremists of Hamas. How can you even negotiate with people that say, "I love death more than you love life"? I came to die. It was just something that was beyond me. So I felt this movie got another dimension, not because of the story, just because of the fact that the world changed. For me, the world changed after October 7th, totally. And I thought, there is another impact. So, I have a foundation called On the Map Foundation. It's to inspire to tell important stories. But that impact was not something that I planned. October 7th was not something that anyone planned. And it definitely affected the way I looked at everything that happened on January 15, 2022.
Well, Rabbi Charlie Citron Walker's actions were widely recognized as heroic, and you certainly see it in the film. But others also played crucial roles behind the scenes. How did you think about acknowledging both the visible and the unsung heroes? Of course, the visible heroes are the Rabbi Charlie and the other hostages. But the unsung heroes involved in the film, you've got law enforcement outside, you've got others, even the TV reporters who were reporting constantly throughout that entire 11-hour ordeal. So how do you go about making sure that everybody knows about those folks as well?
Right now when we're doing screenings and we have sometimes Rabbi Charlie and sometimes Chief Mueller and Matt DeSarno from the FBI joining us, you understand the scope of it. And I try to show it throughout the film, from the White House through the Prime Minister of Israel, Naftali Bennett, who's into it in our movie, with the FBI, the wife. It impacted everything, and it was all really orchestrated. A funny moment is that when they're hungry, they're there for 11 hours. Obviously, they're hungry. They're ordering pizza. Yeah. And then Chief Miller, it's not in the movie, but he shows me off record. He says, "Look, I'm the one who bought the pizza." So even that was an aspect to understand where he is situated. How can they escape? So even though Rabbi Charlie was the one taking action, and who was, as you mentioned correctly, he was the hero, throwing that chair and telling everyone to run, it was just that moment that the FBI was ready to take action and move in. And like you said, there were a lot of heroes behind the scene.
Well, I was present actually at the White House that night. It was the Hanukkah reception where you've got Rabbi Charlie speaking. I was there that evening. where he made some very important comments in his remarks at the time of the candle lighting at that Hanukkah reception. And clearly, though, there are others, and even the profiles that you really give of the three other hostages is extremely important in telling the story, because you have three different individuals who came there that day for their own reasons, obviously, but for different reasons. Tell me this: during your conversations with Rabbi Charlie and the other hostages, were there moments of reflection that surprised you or stayed with you long after the filming ended? Was there something that wasn't on camera that struck you in some way?
They all reacted to it differently. And Larry was the older guy, was a little bit disconnected because he couldn't hear, and he was just staying still. And then he was the first one to be released. Shane got very emotional. He was sick, and he acted even more sick than he was. And even until today, there are some screenings that it's hard for him to join us. He does join. He's an unbelievable guy. And by the way, for your viewers that ask, because we are being asked about it during Q&As, he's Jewish now. He converted. And and Jeff Cohen is like an engineer. He was, from the first moment till the end, thinking of how he can orchestrate it in a way that he can be closer to the door and escape. He was just thinking about that. And Rabbi Charlie really followed the protocol of engaging, of reaching out to the gunman, which, by the way, it's another thing that you could see now that we hear the stories of the hostages in Gaza, that they try to survive and reach out to the human side of those terrorists. And at the end of the day, Rabbi Charlie was feeling that he's the leader. He's the guy that he's responsible for everything that happened. He even says in the movie, I was the one that was welcoming that stranger, and I felt that very heavy about that responsibility.
Did making this documentary change the way you see the world? Your understanding of vulnerability, courage, community. What do you say?
I won't say that. It was a little bit different storytelling for me, because I usually, if you'll see my movies, if it's narrative or if it's documentaries, it's usually romantic and more funny. So I'm happy there were some funny moments here as well. And I tend to see myself as a lighter person. But I mean, it wasn't something that changed the way I see the world, but it's touching that subject and working on it while October 7 is happening definitely impacted me. And I wouldn't say that I changed my views to the world. I still see the good side of the world. I still not say, hey, God forbid, the entire Islam are like that. For the opposite. It was very important for Rabbi Charlie and for me to show that it was actually those women that are Muslim women that came to Adina, to his wife, and hugged her and embraced her and gave her strength. For me, they represent more of what I know of my Islamic friends. So I didn't want that to change, but it definitely shaked something, and I'm sure everything that happened since then, it shook us. I mean, I don't know how you feel about it since October 7, but we're all shaken in Israel and abroad as Jewish people, as human beings.
Now, this is for all of us. Of course, it will never be the same. Starting first of all with the hostages, with the families of that survived, Many of us have taken visits several times down to the Gaza envelope to see those kibbutzim and those communities that I have in my family. There was a hostage who was released, but there's no question that those of us who were adults at the time will remember this, forever. I want to close with one question, Danny. In the course of making Colleyville, particularly after the war began, have you personally encountered anti-Semitism in ways that surprised you, or something that you witnessed surprised you? And how did you navigate that, both personally and then in terms of your own professional outlook, in terms of what may come next on your agenda for another film down the road?
I've been asked that a lot, and I personally didn't. I don't say it doesn't exist, and I know of people that did. But I personally felt overwhelming support from all of my American friends around the world. That's what I felt, no matter bipartisan support. Republicans, Democrats, really, after October 7th. And I mean, even I was just traveling now in Israel for my son's bar mitzvah, and I was amazed. And people don't know about that too much about Israel, but it was like I was in Akko. There's so much beauty of coexistence there, and they are so the Arabs, Israeli citizens, they're so much with us in that. So I'm an optimistic. I think it's going to be the second time I'm quoting Shimon Peres in this interview, that he was saying that optimistic and pessimistic, they die the same, but they live differently. So I try to see the good. And you mentioned Rabbi Charlie in the White House saying, in our darkest moment, we bring light. And so I feel like there was a lot of good in that horrible event that we will all be happy to live without. We will all be happy. October 7th will never happen. We'll all be happy. January 15th would have never happened. But I think we know how to turn it into good. And I'm very, very optimistic. So for me as a storyteller, and the next story I want to tell it, I'm working actively about right now, is turning On the Map into narrative. Showing how Israel recovered from the trauma of the Yom Kippur War through a basketball team. So those are the stories I'm trying to bring. I'm trying to show healing, resilience, and inspiration. So that's what I try to do, and I hope God gives me strength and investors and support to be able to keep on.
In that regard, Danny, for more information about Colleyville, upcoming screenings, or how to host a screening in your community, visit heyjudeproductions.com. But tell us, is there a streaming somewhere in the future for this very important film that you've done?
Yeah, we're actively showing it in the community. So if you want to reach out to us, we'll be happy to come to your community. And we work with a lot of organizations in doing that, while we're talking to the next platform that will host it for global distribution, and it will be there in the future as well. So we're excited about it.
Right.
It's always great to see people react to your voice, to your storytelling, and I hope we'll be able to keep on doing that.
Well, Danny, thank you for joining us and for sharing how you told the story of the Colleyville hostage crisis. We appreciate the care that you brought to documenting this attack, and wish you continued success with this film and all of your future projects. Well, that's all for today's episode of Conversations with B'nai B'rith. Thank you again to Dani Menkin for joining us and for sharing how he approached telling the powerful story of the Colleyville hostage crisis. Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Share this episode, post about it on social media, and leave us a comment. To stay updated and find out about all of our content, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook. We'll be back soon with more thoughtful conversations on Jewish history, culture, and the issues that matter most to our community. Until then, I'm Dan Mariaschin. Thanks for listening. Take care.